All right, everybody, and we are very quickly back in for Hex Mambo versus the Tartarus Titans. Hope you got your new snacks and refreshed your drinks because we are ready to go for a little bit more action. As I am Judas Priestley in, but beside me, removing his microphone on this side actually is Kaizo. Kaizo, how are you feeling today? Are you ready for this one?
I'm apparently disorganized, man. I didn't know that I had a robotic arm sticking out of my headphones that I didn't need. So now that I've done away with that, I'm perfectly ready to go.
All right, well, let's hope that there are no robotic arms attached to any of these players, because, you don't really want that getting in the way of your game. But, of course, we are now a few weeks into the SEC. This is week number 3, of course, and we've seen a lot from both of these teams so far. But is there anything now that we'd want to be seeing going forward? Like, right now, you can't really expect anyone to be too fresh coming in, because we're ready now. We're up and running. We're in business. You expect to see much more cohesive team play, I would expect.
Yeah, I think that we're getting to week 3 is generally around the time that I would say that these teams have a reasonable amount of practice with each other. Obviously, it's not guaranteed that you're coming into the season with a team that you're completely experienced with. A lot of roster changes going into the second split. So it's entirely possible that now that we have a couple of weeks, we've obviously got scrims under these teams' belts as well. They're at the point where they are significantly more comfortable and significantly more confident in their teammates. So I would anticipate that this is around the time that you would see things potentially start to get shaken up. There's a lot of goofy, wacky stuff in the meta right now, a lot of Amaterasu ADC, a lot of Pele mid. So I think that this is definitely the time to start experimenting a little bit. We had the set yesterday with the Storm where there were a couple of different things that they tried to get their first win, didn't quite work out for them, and
Yep.
I would anticipate nothing different here and maybe trying a couple of new things and seeing just kind of testing the water, seeing how it goes.
Well, let's see if we do get any new things as we head on in to picks and bans for this first game. Now, like we said, you can be confident in your rosters right now. Both these two teams, have played together plenty at this point, so we're hoping to see something much more cohesive, as we've mentioned. But like you said, there's a lot of wacky stuff in the meta right now. And, I mean, to top it all off, we've got a Daji first ban. I haven't even seen Daji played since Phase 1, so a little bit shocked for that. But why do you think that is? Why do you think the meta is so diverse at the moment? Do you have any sort of explanation for that?
I've actually, in particular for the mid role, I've been thinking about that a lot because I've been challenging myself to figure out why are people not playing mages anymore? And the
Hmm.
question really only has one answer that I've come up with at least, and that's the fact that the mid farm and like in particular the mid camps fighting around the green buff, which is very invadable, and even defending your own farm is very, very critical right now. It feels like you don't get punished all that often for picking a bunch of pressure and just slamming down a couple of invades. And most of the mages that you would want to pick, things like your Tiamat, your Merlin, your Scylla, fill in the blank mage, do not respond very well to early aggression, in particular from things that have the ability to kill them. So things like a Pele, things like an Amaterasu, which we've also seen in the middle lane recently. It basically just allows you to play very aggressively and try to invade everything
Ishtar.
as often as possible. So they're just a little bit more susceptible than the other picks that we're seeing right now, and that's why we're not entirely moving away from mages, but they're certainly fallen out of favor at least a little bit here.
Well, someone who has fallen into favor recently is actually both Osiris and Ishtar, two gods that we sort of haven't seen for a while, especially the first couple of weeks of SEC. And then every now and then, lestimics in particular, picking this one up last weekend. I think maybe even the weekend before, actually been playing this Osiris quite regularly for the Titans. And it's been very strong. We've seen this type of soul laner that gets to the late game and is just so unkillable, just an obstacle in the way. They don't have the most amount of damage output right now. That is something we are seeing lacking from the solo lane currently. But Osiris has been strong. Ishtar also very popular just to put some pressure onto these normally magical hunters, but Chernobog, sort of a pseudo magical hunter at the moment, does the early game well, does the late game even better. So I'm not too surprised to see something picked up into that. But Tier being locked in before the first round of the second round of bans, this is an unusual pick somewhat. Well, why do you think they might go for a Tier so early here?
It's Julio. Julio loves his tier. I think
Fair
that
point.
anybody who's been watching the SEC for a bit is pretty familiar with this guy and his god pool, and he definitely Loved this one when you were going the Wing Blade and the Relic Dagger build and just zooming around back and forth. I don't think that we're likely to see a whole ton of that movement speed build here, at least in the current meta, but who knows, man? I mean, when you are this comfortable on a god as Julio doubtlessly is on the tier, you can get a little bit individualistic, we'll say, with the build. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we saw one or two of those items and maybe a completely different build than we've seen a lot of these tier players go. It is also a relatively comfortable lane match into Osiris, who otherwise likes to bully a lot of characters that are forced to interact to clear the wave. He doesn't really get that at all. He just kind of walks in, uses a couple of fearlesses, and then walks back under tower or goes off into your jungle and then sees if your own farm is up. So it's not the worst matchup in the world. It is very uncomfortable into the Ganesh in particular. That is not going to be a fun matchup for Julio. You can anticipate a bubble, maybe getting beads as one of your relics, because it is going to be incredibly difficult for him to navigate these team fights if Galadriel has pretty much any idea where he's at in them.
That's an interesting lock in here. We see Charon being locked in. Not the newest god in the game, but the newest god to the competitive pool. Just quickly on this one, Kaiser, what do you think of this god so far? How do you find Charon has been impacting competitive play lately?
I love the god personally, at least as far as my own gameplay. I think that it's very fun to play in lane. It doesn't deal with backline peel particularly well, so it's not like your kind of Khepri, Ganesh, Umoja sort of pick where you're keeping your backliner alive through dive. Actually peeling off dive characters is not this character's specialty. This character is very good at harassing damage dealers, in particular backliners. That slow is very potent. Putting the disarm, or excuse me, putting the silence, that's what it is, on those backliners can be very impactful. Not to mention that AoE shield, you're basically getting a shell every single time you push that second button on Charon, so it's definitely an aggressive style support, not your Ganesh necessarily, but I think that it is a pretty comfortable place in the meta right now, especially considering we're still playing very heavily around dual lane. The shield buff pressure is still particularly important. I think that he fits in pretty well with what you need a support to do right now, despite the fact that maybe not the best backline peel options.
And it has all been about hitting the gas and going fast, as I'm sure you've mentioned in the past. Anyway, let's find out how this game is done as we head on in to game number 1 between Hex Mambo and the Tartarus Titans. And interesting point we didn't actually get to touch on here, Kaiser. It is actually SAP7 piloting the Chernobog in the mid lane with Anhur mixing up to the dual lane. Is that how you would have put this one?
I mean, I don't love Chernobog mid. I think that it's definitely fine. I think that if you're... I mean, we were just talking on the desk about how mages don't really cut it right now in terms of having that early pressure, being able to defend those buffs. Hunters in the mid lane have a much better time dealing with aggressive style picks, something like the Thoth that will be poking you out and just trying to clear the wave without interacting too much. The Chernobog sort of punishes you for that. It has very good in-hand damage just by virtue of being a hunter. You add the Gilded Arrow on top of that, and that's even more auto-attack damage. So it definitely gives you the opportunity to play very aggressively, not to mention the fact that it kind of evades some of the issues that Chernobog has, where you don't want to fight in whatever lane the Chernobog is in, because then you lose the global potential. So instead, you can just stick them in the mid lane and then rotate pretty comfortably to either side lane. You don't have to worry about potentially having your pressure jammed in to the point that you don't get to use that global ultimate cooldown. You can instead just pick a lane and then start ulting toward it.
Yeah, and generally we've seen a lot more aggression around these side lanes that you mentioned, the shield buff pressure being quite relevant, but also just the cooldown buff pressure on the right lane as well. You know, you can't just sit and farm waves anymore in solo. You do have the Totem of Ku to defend with, or just the Totem now, I believe. But you do have the Totem to contend with, and also that cooldown buff. So, of course, being able to rotate quickly as Sap might do, that will be interesting. But seeing neither jungler actually yet making the rotation. Finally, we do see Zhainy making their way over to this left side shield buff, and WorstTurttle opting to give that one away, which brings me to my next point, Kaizo. Out of either of these teams, do you see one of them being particularly more aggressive? It seems both both drafts are pretty even in terms of when they want to play.
I would agree with that. I think that the Ratatoskr for my money is always one that you would want to get a little bit more aggressive a little bit earlier on, just because once you get that acorn online, as we'll see Zhainy at least go for some aggression, won't pay off. Once you get that acorn online, your power spike is just outright better than anybody else on the map at
Yep.
that given point. It used to be, you know, we had boots were still in the game. If you're old enough to remember that, Judas, back when Warrior Tabby was an option for these junglers, it was at least comparable for a first item because it gave you movement speed, as does the acorn, gives you some of that power, or you could have gone for the Ninja Tabby option to give some utility. But that's not an option anymore. I mean, you just cannot buy shoes anymore. So it's a little bit different as Julio. He might be in trouble.
Oh, Julio needing some shoes of their own as they get swiped down by WorstTurttle, and that will be that for First Blood. Easy and clean for the Tartarus Titans. It was a threatened blue buff invade, turned into a actual First Blood in the solo lane. And, I mean, yeah, clean pick for the Tartarus Titans. It's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah, very little investment there from the solo jungle of the Tartarus Titans as well. Just Julio steps up, thought that he could get away with fearlessing in and then back out to clear that last wave before he backed up for the blue buff, and WorstTurttle just happened to be there at the perfect time. That's pretty much your most commonplace solo lane gank. The two times that you really have to look out for it are right when those mids are down in the first rotation. Junglers will either go toward the shield buff or the cooldown buff, depending on which side favors which one more and who has the pressure in mid lane to make that choice versus being forced to just go for whatever's available. And then around this time of the map where blue buff is about to spawn, junglers typically shade their way over toward the solo lane just to be able to make sure that their own guy gets their own buff. And WorstTurttle, fortunately for him, catches Julio maybe not sleeping, but certainly trying to get away with a little bit more than you really should have there. I think that if he has the information that WorstTurttle is on that side of the map, it's very unlikely that he steps up to try to go for that, but WorstTurtle's in the air again.
Oh, and again, there's the wall coming down. Julio goes the wrong way. There is a Fearless Hunter 2, gets the beads from WorstTurttle, and just about shall survive, shall Julio. So that's gank number 2. Failure on the right-hand side, and Zhainy actually making the rotation all the way over. Not sure if they were expecting a little bit more rotation, but Zhainy seems content to not fight back yet in the solo lane and maybe target down this Thoth, but nothing doing just yet.
And as we talk about Zhainy, I actually took a peek down there at the build, because if you recall back to yesterday, Scream was piloting this Ratatoskr to some of the best effect that I've seen Ratatoskr done pretty recently. And his build in that game was he went the Thick Bark Acorn, that's the gray double flurry acorn, and then he went later into the Brawler's Beatstick after his starter item, and then also went for an early Breastplate. This time, we're going to see Zhainy go for this Thistlethorn Acorn, which this gives you, instead of the double flurry, this gives you 5 acorns on that Acorn Blast, which not only, Judas, does more damage, but also makes it a little bit more reliable to hit. You pretty much have to be melee range or damn close to it in order to get the stun out of Zhainy right now, or excuse me, if he didn't have this one. But since he has 5 acorns, the blast is a little bit tighter, it's a little bit wider at the max range as well, allowing you to really reliably use it even as a distance tool as opposed to being directly on top of somebody. It's a higher burst option and also gives you a little bit less survivability than the Thick Bark, just because you don't get the double flurry protection. So a more aggressive option that's a little bit more flexible, but won't be quite as tanky as Scream was in the set yesterday.
And how lucky is Ratatoskr to be able to have multiple acorns that do multiple good things? But hold on, WorstTurttle catching out Sap7, hunting for some additional farm. This is sort of touching on what you're talking about earlier, Kaizo, about mages not being able to contend with fights in the jungle. Well, apparently neither can Chernobog. Sap7 falls down, uses the beads in the process. That's a tough loss for the Chernobog.
And a weird one, too, right? Like, because there's no vision down there for the Tartarus Titans. So they either followed him or happened to be checking whatever farm was down there. Looks like beads were expended for Sap, so he must have been caught unawares in some way by Zhainy. We obviously didn't get to see that kill, but Thoth not being available tells me that was a pretty likely contender for what exactly happened over there. maybe got caught, dashing. Sometimes if you don't feel like you're under pressure, you'll use that movement ability, which, keep in mind, is your escape, is your safety tool, just to get to that farm a little bit sooner. Got to be careful, especially when WorstTurttle has proven pretty significantly this game that he's wanting to play around the solo side of the map. Doesn't look like they have any great vision to determine where he's going to be at least right now. Wards were up on right-hand side, have fallen off, so no information available there for Sap to tell him maybe somebody lurking in the jungle, don't dash toward these back camps.
Now, WorstTurttle being the much more active of the two junglers. We've seen some minor attempts at ganks from Zhainy, but with the dual lane of the Tartarus Titans backing, this just leaves the Gold Fury wide open. Not that the Hex Mambo desperately need it, but this is somewhat exactly what they want to get a foothold into the game now. It is not quite getting a kill on the board, but at least you find yourself with a small win. You get that big objective. You get that burst of gold, and Tartarus Titans caught a bit unawares there.
Judas, I've played a lot of competitive Smite over the last several years. Obviously not at this level, just kind of for fun amateur league things, but a lot of teams with a 7-minute Gold Fury will say, oh, it was just a 7-minute Gold Fury. That's not even, we don't even care about that. That's not a big deal. And I'll quote what the kids say these days, Judas. That's cap. You absolutely care about that Gold Fury going down. Is it the end of the world, like you said? No. I mean, they're only up 600 or 700 gold, but that's gold that they're up after Tartarus Titans have already gotten 2 kills to 0. They've yet to find one on the board for the Hex Mambo, and they're still a little bit in the lead. It's not a whole lot, as Zhainy takes a whole lot of damage, is forced into the air, barely getting on out of there with double-digit HP, and WorstTurtle's not done.
Away. WorstTurtle surely can't reach it, but Sap7 might need to be aware of where this Thor is. Sap7 looks to be looking for WorstTurtle, but ends up just finding them falling from the sky, and that shall be that. But Zhainy there with a bit of a warning sign, needed the entirety of the cosmos to escape from that one, because that could have been very dangerous. Spudio and AicyD brawling out over that shield buff as well. It's a very, very finely poised game right now. No one's getting a clear edge. There just seems to be this slight jungle differential at this early stage. But, I mean, we've seen Zhainy play before. It's likely not to stay this way.
Wow, Mast got 2 of those 3 camps with auto attacks, which in the grand scheme of things is not a huge deal, but it's just wild that he got 2 of them without using an ability. Ganesha autos are not hitting that hard. And actually talking about this Ganesh, I'm taking a look at the build here, Judas. It's the Sovereignty and then directly into what's likely to be that breastplate. Because don't forget, Hex Mambo have the Chernobog in the mid lane instead of where your traditional mage magical damage dealer would be. And they don't have a Cerberus or a Cthulhu, for example, as their solo laner. Since they picked the tier, their only source of magical damage is Cozy on this Charon. And that's not going to do a whole lot. I mean, you can pretty much stack all the FizzD in the world for the Tartarus Titans and feel pretty comfortable with the fact that you aren't going to be taking very much magic damage. And Icy is going to get out of here. But that just raises the question for me, Judas, of what are Hex Mambo going to do if Mast goes, instead of a breastplate, maybe a spectral armor in this slot, and you see Zhainy go for a breastplate of his own in the middle lane? I mean, things are potentially in dire straits if the Tartarus Titans start building just a crazy amount of physical defense, because there's not really a whole lot the Mambos can do in order to punish them for that. I mean, you could argue they build things like Titan's Bane, Executioner, Kinsai, and they will do all of that pretty well, but still means that they're going to have to get a whole lot of items online before they really start to deal significant damage to the Tartarus Titans.
You, of course, have the slight amount of shred coming out from Spudio, but specifically talking about Spudio, interesting to see them go for this Atalanta's bow. Now, it is a bit of a faster start, and you can see that's why it's paying off so well into MastKiII right now. Zhainy looping around, gets the stun in the Dynamic Pillars. Spudio just walked. I don't even know if they used an Impale in that fight. Sap going all the way into the tower. This is almost certainly a dead Chernobog. Luckily, they can get to safety, and there is backup from Zhainy through the Cosmos. AicyD blasts them both away. Where's player 3? There's Spudio looping in. There's the pillar. There's the Impale. There is the kill. And Zhainy just off the mark with that final judgment. Sweeps up Sap. Sweeps up Zhainy. Makes a huge revenge play. 2 for 2 across the map overall.
And that's how that should end, with the way that it started.
Exactly.
I mean, when you've got Chernobog ulting into the tower, ego challenging in the tower while being hit by the creep wave, while being hit by the tower, while being hit by the enemy ADC, that's just not, you should, if he walks away from that unscathed, Judas, it would feel wrong to me. Like, there should be some form of punishment. One might say final judgment could come their way.
Fantastic.
In response to, I know, I was pretty proud of that. In response to that over-aggression into the tower. And Icy, I mean, credit where it's due. He doesn't live there, but how could you? With the pressure they put on him, he lives long enough to deal the damage to set up for Zhainy. And WorstTurttle was there just in case one more person stuck around a little bit too long. And Spudio may be prone to do that at this point on this Anhur. He's looked very comfortable on this pick. He's one of my favorite players to watch in this league right now because he loves to play so aggressively, and he is very confident in just about every lane matchup. I think that he kind of embodies the ADC mentality of I'm just better than my opposition, so I'm going to play as aggressively as I want to.
A bit of off the mark there from WorstTurttle. Doesn't connect with SAP7, but we'll have to keep in mind, of course, Hex Mambo do have this double ADC comp. So while the Tartarus Titans are, obviously building up as much physical defense as they possibly can, we do still have to worry about the fact that double Hunter just hurts. No matter what. I would expect to see maybe a split in the builds where maybe we see, for example, SAP7 building into some crit, whereas Spudio focusing more on that sort of pen power type of build, especially on this Anhur as well, will provide that additional shred for SAP7 to follow up. And Spudio 1v2 diving forward. Zhainy is lurking around, and there is, oh my goodness, so much damage. Along with Sap flying from the sky is the duo from Hex Mambo. MastKiII now on the retreat, pops the shell early to get to safety, but the safety lies in the way of Charon to ferry him over through the sticks, and that will be 2 kills for Hex Mambo, and surely a Primal Fury as well.
Icy's not going to sleep well tonight after that, man. He's got his support 2 inches away from him, and an Anhur just jumps at him with no regard for his own safety, and he is the one that dies. I mean, you can't draw it up any better than that. The timing of the Chernobog ult coming in at the same time as Zhainy on this Ratatoskr ult, all setting up to just take 8 billion spears to the face from Spudio's Desert Fury. That was... that's some spooky stuff. You don't want to see that ever again if you're Icy. We'll see Sap evade the final judgment here in mid, but hang on, it's not done. The dunk in from WorstTurttle.
Can't evade the dunk, can't get the Mules to. A great silence from Cozyx, though. Does actually prevent the teleport coming through. Now, MastKiII's a little bit looped off here. Zhainy does a lot of damage, and MastKiII's feeling all of that damage as SAP7 firing in the back. Cozyx gets another kill. This Charon having a huge impact. The dual lane for Hex Mambo. 5 kills between them so far, and Julio having a nice peaceful time of it in solo lane now.
Yeah, this is the solo lane dream, as we'll see Sap going back in.
Oh, not again.
He dashes out, but fortunately for him, no mana for Sap, and he'll actually get sprinted away from the Osiris ult here. Everybody heading for the hills. Nobody has any resources.
Oh, Zhainy with the shots. Lestimics going for the dive. Zhainy does fall to Julio over all the way in the backside. Lestimics now all alone. Has to retreat. No Lord of the Afterlife available. There's the stun coming out, but barely any time on that CC. Lestimics now lift to the sky. Nice knockback from Julio. There's the Dharmic Pillars from MastKiII. Desert Fury goes off somewhere in that fight. Spudio making the long rotation all the way over. WorstTurttle back again. After all of this fighting said and done, this mid lane brawl comes to an end. Not a lot done just yet. Pyromancer still stands as well.
Pyromancer stands. Beads expended there from Lestimics. If you're wondering why that crowd control was so short on the tier ult, he actually used those to kind of immune at least some of that lockdown, get him on out of there. Probably worth his while, considering still hasn't taken a spill yet. Don't want to give that first death over, especially around a critical objective like the Pyromancer right now. And you mentioned that the backline for the Hex Mambo are just going to hurt. Well, I think that it's worth pointing out as well, Judas, they're also going to hurt these objectives. The shred for the Hex Mambo is going to be insanely good with this double ADC backline. You've got Executioner online now as well for Spudio, so 2 different ways to reduce the protection for Sap to do even more damage. And the wraparound here from Zhainy does not seem to be spotted out.
It wasn't spotted out, but it is beadsed out, as well as WorstTurttle in the mid lane, actually setting that up for a while. I noticed onto SAP7, so another death for the Chernobog. 3 deaths so far onto SAP7. Looks like the Tartarus Titans setting up this left side jungle. Zhainy spots out WorstTurttle, goes for the initial engagement, but gets CC'd out. Dharmic Pills is great, not quite enough damage just yet. Looks like the rest of the Tartarus Titans will back off. Oh, Zhainy with the shot doesn't quite connect with the evade and punish by virtue of the blink from Zhainy, and that shall be that. Something I think is worth pointing out here, Kaiser, we actually have Tyr versus Thoth. Therefore, 2 very opposing rules of law commanding against each other right now. Which do you think will come out on top? Whose truth is better?
It's seeming suspiciously like it might be the Arbiter of the Damned that has the upper hand in that situation. He's sitting pretty comfortably at level 16, 2-1-2 so far on this Thoth, and might be hunting another kill here. Cozy's taking a lot of damage to try to get onto this beacon. Zhainy is here on the rotation, but solo laners are coming as well.
Solo lane's on the way. SAP7 Cozyx on the spot at the moment. MastKiII stunned out. Damnation hits 3. Need to get on this beacon, and as does MastKiII oblige. Tartarus Titans now with 4 in the spot. Will there be a counter engage from Hex Mambo? It's just a pillar for the time being. The zone control is so good for both sides, and yet here comes in Julio now. Beacon gets neutralized. Now it's slightly in favor of the Mambo. This Mambo is going on right now because it's a huge dance for this beacon. But neither side really willing to give it up. It's just the 2 members of the Hex Mambo there, but it will be conceded by the Tartarus Titans. That's one of the longest beacon brawls I've ever seen.
You should watch back the VOD from the set that I had last night, Judas, because we had a minute and a half of nobody dying over the beacon. Fortunately, this one didn't drag on quite as long, thanks to the fact that Spudio is capable of making that rotation. You can see just ticks over to level 18, 3-0-1 on this Anhur, gives him all the pressure in the world to just clear the wave up on the tower line of AicyD and then walk on over without missing any farm, whereas AicyD has to respond to that wave being pushed for fear of falling any further behind. If you are 2 levels down as an ADC, that's already bad, but you get much further than that. You're talking a starter item available for Spudio, whereas not for AicyD. You're talking another critical crit item or a penetration item that you won't have online. As Hex Mambo grabbed that Gold Fury off the back of Judas, a lot of that dual lane pressure. I mean, you just cannot step far enough forward for fear of the fact that Spudio's going to be lurking over there. Zhainy's pretty much proven that he's willing to sit around these corners as he's trying to do right now. Fortunately for the Titans, he's on a ward here, but it's been a lot of play around this side of the map, and they're very well aware of that fact and responding to it accordingly.
Also around, but as is Cozy. No one really willing to commit too hard here. WorstTurttle actually goes up because Zhany's being engaged on. Nice bees and Aegis combo. There's Sap in some danger. Zhainy will fall down first, though. Dunking down from the sky is Zhainy with a triple knockup. Sap now just being dove down by lestimics. Lestimics all alone. WorstTurttle shall get the kill. Desert Fury comes out to put some return damage out. Julio just throwing everyone around across the map, but the Hex Mambo have dove very deep for this. It is 4-on-4 in the Titans part of the jungle. Shall just be the 1-for-1 at the moment. Trading mids are both teams, but the Mambo looking to take this Pyromancer. Tartarus Titans might have something to say about it, though.
Spudio is here to help this one go down. Lestimics engaged on initially and actually pushed back in.
Oh, lestimics has to use the Lord of the Afterlife defensively. So again, the Hex Mambo turn their attention to this Pyro WorstTurttle. Nearby, no Anvil of Dawn available. Julio's looped all the way behind them. Mambo do get the Pyromancer. WorstTurtles used their escape. Pillar is pretty good. Will slow them down. Zhainy on the loop around. Does get the stun as well. It's great CC from Julio. Still, the front line are alive, but they should be wiped out by Zhainy. Take down 2, all in one fell swoop. That's a Pyro. Big fight for the Hex Mambo.
And that is why you play tier right there. Those 2-man, 3-man, 4-man fearlesses always feel so impactful in these fights. And that all starts out, Judas, with SAP7 trading his life for Zhainy. And I mean, we've seen Sap diving pretty darn deep a lot of these fights, and his role in these team fights seems to be pseudo-initiator, kind of the scapegoat, sacrificial lamb to get the party started. And he's willing to trade himself out for Zhainy, who, if you put WorstTurttle aside, who has looked very good on this Thor, one of the few things that seems to be going right for the Titans, and it's not going to be lestimics much longer. He has to ult out, but Johnny's on the chase.
Johnny's on the chase, gets the knock-up with that through the Cosmos. That'll be the stun. That'll be the killing spree for Zhainy. Sap7 again having an impact. The 0 kills and 4 deaths, but the all-important one is those 6 assists. This Living Nightmare being extremely impactful. Now MastKiII will spot out that the Fire Giant has been started. This is a double ADC composition, so the Fire Giant will continue to burn at this pace. What can the Titans do about it? As he steps on up, Sap7 and Spudio turn the attention away. Hex Mambo to get that Fire Giant despite the Dharmic Pillars from MastKiII, who gets pushed back in to a little bit of danger. WorstTurttle falls yet again on the right-hand side. MastKiII will fall in the middle lane as well. That is another pair of kills and an objective for Hex Mambo. At this rate, this game won't last too much longer.
Not much longer at this rate, Judas. They're marching down the tier 2 tower, and they still have quite some time on both of these respawns from the Titans. They should be able to just walk in here and take this middle bird basically uncontested. Looks like AicyD will put the long-range shots out, but won't want to step any further in. And this is the stage of the game where the Hex Mambo draft is very scary. I mean, we're talking 2 backliners to just shred all of these Phoenixes. You already have the objective under your belt, which one would argue is the main point of contention for what the Tartarus Titans have that Hex Mambo don't, is that one singular instance of mage damage. The Final Judgment, by far the best secure on the map for something like a contested Fire Giant or fighting around a critical Oni Fury, for example. That isn't a concern anymore for the Hex Mambo. They've already done the deed. They have the Fire Giant under their belts. They managed to zone out Zhainy deep enough that he didn't get to get in there, at least try to throw out an ult and try to steal that one away. So arguably the most dangerous part of the game for the Hex Mambo already behind them. 11,000 gold in the lead, pushing up, likely to grab this Primal Fury. And this is where the Titans need to decide something very critical right now, Judas. What are we doing about this Titan that's about to march down the right-hand side of the map? Because that is going to be very difficult for them to contend with if Hex Mambo send one guy over there and make it anybody other than Sap7. That's immediately going to be a matchup that is in the favor of the Hex Mambo, with Titans having basically no way of winning that 1v1 outside of an execution error from the Hex Mambo. And already WorstTurttle having to use the ult to get on out of there in right lane. And actually goes back in.
Goes right back in. Aegis traded. There's the stun. That will be the kill for Zhainy. That's the 1v1 that you were talking about. Julio making Sap7 in a fight that is not a 1v1 as the left side gets pushed down. Also, Spudio putting out a bit of damage. That's half HP on this Phoenix as the mini wave comes in. And Julio is all the way in the Titan room because there is no Titan to pat them out. Nowhere is safe, quite literally, for the Tartarus Titans at the moment. And it looks like Hex Mambo looking to take this fight with a little bit of a split engagement. Spudio's backed away. Zhainy has this Titan to contend with, which you can't do all on your own. And Mambo can just step up, take what they need, and get out for free. It's not going well anywhere at the moment for the Tartarus Titans.
And they're being stripped of all of their best tools. I mean, in particular, this Thoth, this is why you pick mages in the late, is for the late game, excuse me. They aren't strong in the early game. They're starting to come online in the mid game. This is where Zhainy's supposed to make his bread and butter, is on these siege defenses with very effective wave clear, very good long-range poke, the threat of that single instance of damage from the Final Judgment. And Julio just didn't let him play. I mean, he ults into the throne room. What are you supposed to do as a Thoth? And what are you supposed to do as the Titans, Judas, with the Titan of the Hex Mambo marching into the right bird?
Well, as soon as that Titan hits that Phoenix, it is generally the end of that Titan's life, Phoenix's life, I should say. Julio again all the way up to the throne room, but that right side Phoenix will be falling away shortly. So all 3 defenses down for the Titans. It is just their namesake to keep them alive in this fight. Lestimics steps up first, has to burn the beads early. And we'll have to retreat back to base. Sap7 churning out some damage. Order Titan is in the Chaos Titan's bedroom. Now slamming down is Julio again with a huge ultimate. Dunking down the backside is WorstTurttle. And there is the Titan just falling down before the Titans really get rolling in their fight there. They possibly were shining up quite well in that engagement, but it was just too little too late. Titan falls down quick to the Hex Mambo.
Hex Mambo made it look easy. Like that was a very convincing game. There was some early aggression, some very good payoff from the Titans, particularly on the right-hand side of the map. I think the WorstTurttle did a great job of getting them off to a reasonable lead over there, but the control that Spudio had over the dual lane side of the map, in particular the Gold Fury pit, those purple buff, shield buff invades, I mean, all of it just felt so difficult for the Titans to contend with. You can see him there 3-0-4 at the end of that one alongside his dual lane partner, who actually shares almost the same gold and the exact same stat line, Judas. So
Crazy.
that's pretty cute. That's a good double date they had there.
Charon's toll, you know, you pick up all those coins with all those kills. You gotta pay up, got to pay the ferryman, and Cozyx sweeps all of that up. And yeah, like you said, it was just sort of look at the player damage numbers there. It's almost very finely balanced across the board. Spudio actually lowest on their team, but it was just a case of the Hex Mambo after, as it goes, that 7-minute Gold Fury turned the game completely on its head, and then all of a sudden, everything went well for the Mambo.
And Julio did excellently, considering the pressure he was under. Don't forget, he took a spill for First Blood, and WorstTurttle continuing to play off the right-hand side of the map for the first 5 to 10 minutes of that game. A lot of solo laners crumble under that pressure, just Julio demonstrating the veteranship, the comfortability on the god as well.
Yeah, well, that was how the game 1 went. We'll have to see if the Titans can do anything different for game number 2. We're going to head for a quick break when we come back for this second game.
Implemented. The new era has begun. station, my mind wants to go. Overthinking when I'm all alone. Out of focus from all the unknown. Can you check for my vitals? Think I need revival. Broken down and fading, my heart keeps breaking. Caught up in the storm, but we're the survivors. Looking up for love in a little bit of darkness. Hold each other up when we're falling down. Never give it up because we are the fighters. Caught up in the storm, but we're the survivors. Looking up for love in a little bit of darkness. Hold each other up when we're falling down. Never give it up because we are the fighters. Underwater, swinging my fist. Tension rising, but no part of it. Nice to meet ya, been called a misfit. No need to fake it, we all got some shit. Can you check for my vitals? Think I need revival. Broken down and fading, my heart keeps breaking. Caught up in the storm, but we're the survivors. Looking up for love in a little bit of darkness. Hold each other up when we're falling down. Never give it up because we are the fighters. Caught up in the storm, but we're the survivors. Looking up for love in a little bit of darkness. Hold each other up when we're falling down. Never give it up because we are the fighters.
All right, and we are back for game number 2 between the Tartarus Titans and Hex Mambo. Hex Mambo, well known as a very strong team, but the Tartarus Titans didn't do a lot to contend it. Kaiser, what do they need to do differently for this second game?
I think you gotta answer something that Spudio's doing over there in the left lane because they left him largely unchecked, and that's not me just pulling that out of thin air, Judas. If you looked at the scoreboard at the end of the game, Spudio did 10,000 damage as Anhur. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Anhur is a very difficult pick to deal with in the early game, but
Yep.
if you're not even making him deal damage to get 2 levels ahead, I feel like there's got to be something you can be doing differently. WorstTurttle had a very good impact on the solo side of the map, maybe shift some of that focus away from what Julio's doing, because obviously that didn't seem to slow him down too much. Maybe try to put a stop gag over there in the dual lane, because that early Gold Fury that they gave away, and then that bled over into the second early Gold Fury, then a couple of weird tower dives onto the dual lane. I mean, it's a gradual effect where it compounds off of itself, but you want to put a stop to it as soon as possible, and I think that that's probably, for my money, the one place that you got to keep an eye on here in game 2 if you want to see the Tartarus Titans get the W.
We'll see if they can get the W and what they will change in their draft to do so. So let's head on in to Game 2's picks and bans. This time, Tartarus Titans picking up the order side with Hex Mambo on the Chaos side. And it's a tough call for what you want to do exactly with the picks and bans here, because we touched on the fact that some of the bans were a bit strange. Like, for example, there was a Daji first ban from Hex Mambo, but what the Titans have to contend with is if the Mambo are just banning out like weird stuff that maybe it's not the necessarily top meta picks, and you are then only getting one of those top meta picks left open, that just means that the Mambo have freedom of choice, whatever they want to pull away. And do you think that's part of why the Mambo are maybe banning in the way that they are?
I think that a lot of, in particular, our most veteran teams, and you can definitely put Hex Mambo in that conversation, are more comfortable than the average bear, will say, when it comes to picking the things that are a little bit stronger than everybody else and probably in the top contending points of the meta. If hypothetically, Judas, we were to have a situation where every god goes unbanned, you just pass every single ban, I think that Hex Mambo would be more comfortable with that than the Tartarus Titans were. And I think that they're pretty indicative of that in the way that they're banning. They're very much willing to let the Titans get a Chernobog or a Morrigan or one of these other picks that very strong right now, Pele also available, if it means that they get a couple of things in response. And this time the bans look a little bit more normal, we'll say, more accustomed, or more what we're accustomed to seeing. Athena largely considered to be the single best support pick available right now. Hades very good at shutting down the lane, making sure he's the main character of that lane. And we've already seen what this Chernobog's capable of. The mid lane also does much the same thing in the dual lane. You mentioned almost akin to a way a magical ADC works, where has the late game prowess, but also feels pretty strong in that early game. These are much more realistic bans to what you'll see in your ranked games and your own competitive games at home. A bit of a better formula to follow, but I think that it definitely lets things kind of shake down to a point where this is what we're accustomed to seeing. Wukong has been a top pick, maybe not the number one top pick for a while now. Freya, Olorun, Soul, pretty much any of those three magical ADCs we've been seeing go in the top. It's definitely a lestimics and Julio thing to get this Osiris so early on, but each set has its own meta, Judas, and we're starting to see this one develop to the point that Julio just wants to take the Osiris away from lestimics.
Yeah, and of course Osiris with that Lord of the Afterlife can cancel out the healing that Sun Wukong gets from that Somersault Cloud. Sure. Maui actually being locked in by the Titans for MastKiII here. Interesting to note, it is actually MastKiII playing the support role rather than the usual jungle role, which is fine. Those are generally quite similar. But Maui coming through right now, it's a bit surprising to me because I think Maui thrives when the meta is more akin to as it was at the end of Season 9, where it is this more slower, objective-based team fight style, rather than the just all-in dive that we've been seeing. I think Maui maybe struggles into that sort of play style. But how do you think they will contend with this Freya, Osiris, and Hebo combo, who don't really look to dive quite so deep?
It is so brave of you to say that Maui looks good when Maui was the number one ban in the end of Season 9.
Hot take, I know.
I know. You're really pushing the boundaries here of what we're allowed to say on the broadcast. But I do think it's worth pointing out Maui, in the very, very early stages of the game, has a very positive matchup into Freya. Like, in particular, you walk into lane, Freya pops the pulse and then tries to start clearing the wave. Maui's very good at kind of preventing her from doing that very effectively. You can jump on her, you can pull her after the fact, and pretty much prevent her from clearing that first wave and get that ever-critical lane pressure over there in the dual lane. And it is also pretty good into the Hebo, which obviously picked after the Maui, but does give him some tools to contend with that. Hebo doesn't like to be pulled out of position, likes to go in, get the knock-up, get back out, or have to ult if necessary, and I think that Maui does a pretty good job of forcing that hand and making him do that when otherwise he maybe wouldn't have. It doesn't match up the best into the Ganesha, just because if you pull somebody, you're immediately getting silenced, but that is one more teamfight tool that you're forcing out of this Ganesha when otherwise Cozy maybe wanted to hang on to that one and see if he can use that for some backline peel as opposed to on himself for the Maui pull. It's a diverse pick. It has a couple of different ways that you can play it right now. It's probably your run-of-the-mill average support. Nobody's excited, nobody's ecstatic, but also nobody's super disappointed to see this Maui locked in for the Tartarus Titans.
Well, we actually
Until now.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden, Awilix being having a key target in the Maui, where it's sort of like that that type of pick where Well, say type of pick. It's a situation where Maui is swinging on that solar swing, and Zhainy will just be able to pick which angle do I want to pull you from. It is so telegraphed and so long of a leap. It is not the only leap, though, of course, on the side of the Tartarus Titans. This Scylla pickup, which I was going to touch on, being this sort of unsafe plug and play that you want. You know, it doesn't work as well at the moment in the current meta. And of course, Awilix can pull Scylla out from teleporting to that Sentinel. It's almost a bit of a check placement here from Mambo. You know, Awilix being picked here makes the Titans comp so much more difficult to play.
Yeah, Zhainy with the Awilix last pick is really staking a claim here for the Mambo. He is going to be the main character of this one because, like you mentioned, is incredibly strong into that Maui. You can literally just pick him off in a situation where ordinarily Maui feels quite safe. I think that he's one of the better Guardians at maintaining survivability, CC immune ult, very good, very reliable jump to get him out of danger. If you take away that key tool, it feels like he can't do much of anything because the jump is so integral to the way that Maui plays. It's his main source of peel. It's his best source of initiation, save for just dropping the landfall and trying to pull somebody in. He has to play so much more carefully. This is such an annoying matchup for the Maui, and Zhainy is probably going to be hanging around that dual lane a whole lot more than we saw him in game number 1. It's going to be one to keep an eye on because Maui does kind of mess up Awilix if you try to go on somebody else. I mean, you can get pulled and prevented from doing the feather step, but that's assuming you're alive, Judas.
Assuming you are alive, but the good news for the Titans is they shall be alive at the start of this game as we head on in to this second matchup. Now, I think the Tartarus Titans here might have been a bit fooled by the Hebo pick, thinking that might be a jungle pick for Zhainy. That's where I was expecting it to go, but SAP7 now, piloting this Hebo in the mid lane up against the Scylla. Do you think this Hebo's going to have a reasonable time? But there is a Thor on the other side,
Thor, very good into Hebo. I'll definitely give you that one. I actually don't do this at home, kids, but Thor, one of my favorite supports to pick into Hebo just because that wall is so good at locking him down. Any long-range CC, things like Solar Flare from a Khepri, for example, very good at contending with Hebo, who, again, he wants to make use of his movement. He wants to get in and out of these fights, get some poke off, and then back up. And if you have very good, very reliable long-range crowd control, it makes him think twice about stepping forward and getting too aggressive. And I think that Thor does that perhaps better than anybody else, having not only we'll see this interaction here in the dual lane, Spudio has to use the beads knowing that MastKiII is going for the jump. But having that long-range crowd control just makes the life of SAP7 so much more difficult.
Well, AicyD getting all the way in. MastKiII again with the leap in onto Cozy and Spudio, but there's the meditation coming through. So both relics already used by the dual lane for Hex Mambo. MastKiII in a bit of danger as well. Huge scrapping going on for this early dual lane fight. But as you mentioned, Freya has a slight disadvantage in this first wave clear. Looks like Hex Mambo have survived that, despite Tartarus Titans doing whatever they could to make it difficult for them.
Yeah, and you usually don't want to give up your beads too early on. As Sap is, wow, he looks very comfortable in this 1v2. But you usually don't want to give up your beads too early as an ADC because, again, you want to have them available if you have to fight for the shield buff or a gank coming your way. Usually happens around the 1.5 to 2 minute mark, and you'd like to have your resources available for that. But in particular, this Freya into Maui, it's so crucial that you use the beads early on to prevent him from stopping you from using your pulse on that first wave, because that's like the only time that you can really abuse Freya in the laning phase is on that first wave. He gets one weakness, and that's that number 1 wave, and after that point, much more comfortable.
Zhainy in some trouble. The knockup from Zhainy is good, and the first blood shall be in their pocket. That's as simple as it goes, really. There's a bit of a scrap going. WorstTurttle went up against SAP7, but left Zhainy alone to deal with Zhainy, and Zhaony's always going to win that fight.
Zhainy is always going to win that one, and actually, you might win some back camps here as well. WorstTurttle doubtlessly heard that Zhainy was over here, but didn't want to contend with the level 4 Willish by himself. And that's bad news if you're a Tartarus Titans fan, because again, Zhaony's going to be the main character of this one. He has the best pick for what the enemy team is going to be doing on the map. And again, WorstTurttle looked fantastic on this Thor in game number 1, but Awilix is one of our premier snowball junglers. If you get her off to a lead, it can be very difficult to shut her down later on. And already getting this blue buff invade, making lestimics a little bit more uncomfortable in a lane matchup that already requires him to play a little bit more carefully, just because Osiris can punish you for just trying to walk up, clear the wave, and walk away. They've already got a stranglehold of the right-hand side of the map, and if Julio and Zhainy can find some way to rotate that pressure over, in particular, Zhainy on the Awilix can find a way to break over into the dual lane, start harassing MastKiII as well. It could already be very bad for the Tartarus Titans.
Zhainy just getting their own farm in their own side of the map, combined with SAP7. Goes level 5 now. In fact, taking over to level 6 is SAP7. Dual lane for Hex Mambo, also level 5. AicyD and MastKiII will struggle to contend with this properly, so it's just a steal attempt coming through. It's a nice little back and forth, but over time you will lean in favor of the Hex Mambo dual lane. Not a whole lot of action aside from that one pick in the middle lane, but that's kind of all on Zhainy's back. You know, when Zhainy decides they want to get aggressive, want to make things happen, that's when things shall be happening, whether the Tartarus Titans want it to or not. But getting set up over on this left-hand side now, WorstTurttle here. Zhainy spots him out. Certainly can't go for a surprise invade there, or surprise gank, and that'll just be a shield buff going the way of Zhainy overall.
And that's pretty much how you can expect that to go. WorstTurttle wanted an opportunity on the dual lane, thought that he had a reasonable window with which to use that opportunity because he didn't think anybody was there. As soon as he sees Zhainy on that ward, or actually just walking in front of him, immediately pings it out, says, Zhainy's here, we just straight up cannot fight over here right now, immediately backs up and finds something else to do. You don't want to force that fight. It's actually a fight forced MastKiII with the landfall.
MastKiII with the landfall doesn't pull anyone into the tower, though. There's the Dharmic Pillars, doesn't quite do enough damage to take down the Maui. It has drawn the attention of Zhainy, though, and that might just be enough for the Tartarus Titans, honestly. Although Zhainy walking right into Zhainy. They almost didn't see each other for a moment, and Zhainy actually not willing to engage because there's a Thor on the backside in the sky. There is the I'm a monster. Ooh. Oh, man. That's a tasty whiff there. Zhainy can't dash to that Sentinel either. And I think, was that the beads then for Zhainy? No, it wasn't. Luckily enough, that was not all going in the way of Zhainy, but that's just the threat that this Awilix carries right now.
And she's going to walk her way on over to this solo lane side of the map. Once again, lestimics having to contend 1v2 against this blue buff invade, and it's just not happening. Another one stripped away from the Sun Wukong. That's the tune of about a 1-level lead, maybe call it 1.5 for Julio over lestimics. And don't forget, Julio looked like pretty much the premier solo laner in the game last game, despite the fact that he was put behind. And I mean, with a lead, it's already getting to the point where I'm wondering what the answer is going to be from the Tartarus Titans, because it's very clearly not going to be around this dual lane. Spudio very confidently walking up here against AicyD and MastKiII for the shield buff fight, and actually getting dashed in on.
Well, gets the beads from Spudio, goes for the mounted archer as well, but MastKiII already using that solar swing means they are sitting ducks. Spudio now wants to go engage, but AicyD is also wanting to go in because WorstTurttle has shown up for backup, and that will be the Valkyrie's discretion. That will also be the end of the fight for the Tartarus Titans, just dropping the 1 kill.
1 kill isn't the worst thing in the world, but again, it feels like signs of things to come for me, Judas, because this is already hang on. WorstTurtle's going up, lands behind everybody.
Oh man, it's all going from bad to worse. They almost get the kill at the Spudio. Can they find this important pick? It does not look like it because WorstTurttle up and down from Zhainy. Dashing forward is Zhainy as well. MastKiII back on the scene. Only level 5 is this Maui, so takes a ton of damage. Zhainy no more mana. Might have wanted to get more involved if they were. SAP7 even making the very, 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 very long rotation over. Has to make the very, very, very long walk back, sadly, as the fight has ended.
Yeah, it gets the walk of shame back to the middle lane, but I think that he's pretty comfortable with where he's at. Sap hasn't really had to do a whole lot so far, and things are just kind of going well for you, which is, when you're playing, in particular, a mage in the middle lane, exactly what you're looking for. I mean, you can compare it to somebody like Zhainy, who also wants to just kind of farm up, get those items online, not really interact a whole lot. but he's 2 levels down, and nothing's really happened in the middle lane. It's just the fact that Sap has been getting all of the solo farm because of how active Johnny's been in the side lanes, invading that farm as well, whereas Zhainy has been splitting a lot and hasn't gotten a lot of good value from these fights.
Oh man, WorstTurttle and MastKiII. The phrase is unfortunately forcing it a bit over here. Spudio now gets re-engaged on, has the Valkyrie's discretion. WorstTurttle and MastKiII are so far in the realms of danger. Sap7 just going to sweep up the free farm over here. WorstTurttle even decides to step on into the tower. It's one of those games right now for the Tartarus Titans, but it seems to be through their own doing.
Yeah, and I do think that it's worth pointing out, Judas, because, well, hang on, lestimics is in a particularly bad situation here. Gets the Ox crippled out, will have to ult over the wall. Another blue buff invade successful for Hex Mambo. But anytime that we have a situation like this where a team makes a play that on the surface looks maybe a little bit silly or maybe like they shouldn't be doing that, I like to point out whenever it is still the correct thing to do. And I think that this is a situation for the Tartarus Titans where, despite the fact that that fight in left lane, it was weird, it looks a little bit desperate, it is still the right way to play the map, and I won't get time to finish that thought.
Sap7 in some trouble. Still way out of position. WorstTurttle dunking down, doesn't quite connect. Nice knock up there from Sap to get MastKiII out of their way. Sap7 solo shall fall down to WorstTurttle. Now Spudio in some trouble. Zhainy comes through with the damage. So the Tartarus Titans do manage to get 2 on the board. Actually manage to use their resources in a way that is not an act of desperation. And instead, correct kills and 2 kills that they were desperately needed.
Which is huge for them, and full stop, Judas, I do not know what Sap7 was doing there, because I thought that with the way he positioned in the shield buff after having his beads forced, it looked like, I don't know, you're like spam taunting your buddy in a casual game, or you're trying to bait somebody for a Thor ult or a Ratatoskr ult, but none of that was going on. So they kind of just kill Sap7 for basically for free. But to go back to the earlier point with that tower dive and left where they were trying to shut down Spudio, I do think that despite the fact that it looked sloppy, it looked a little bit messy, that is still the correct thing for them to have been doing at the time. If you're already 4,000 gold down at this stage of the game, the alarm bells should be ringing if you're a Tartarus Titans fan, and Zhainy will actually sound another alarm bell himself in the solo lane. You gotta do something soon, and it is, already WorstTurttle finding something to make it happen, and MastKiII's trying to fight his way into duo as well.
MastKiII putting on the dancing shoes, going left and right. Finally got the solo swing, but not in time. That'll be a 1-for-1 overall across the map, but it's still in favor of the Tartarus Titans. And as you'd mentioned, you know, if you are going to be so far down in gold, but Johnny, you're still brawling it out with WorstTurttle. Here's the beads, there's the crush, still gets the kill with the feather step. There's the I'm a monster though from Zhainy, and that one hits. That one's still a worthwhile kill. Again, as we've been touching on, if you are so far down in gold, you trading 1-for-1 is totally worthwhile. And the Tartarus Titans actually getting a few presents there from the Hex Mambo, and will now not be quite so far behind.
Yeah, that's huge for them, to shut down specifically Zhainy, and to also have gotten that shutdown in Spudio in the previous fight. Those are the 2 highest value targets, I would argue, maybe not in particular in the gold category, because Spudio only level 10, whereas a couple of level 12s, some level 13s on the map. But as far as slowing down the momentum of players, I think that it's got to be Zhainy, it's got to be Spudio, if you're looking to shut down anybody. And Sap7 was also a pretty sizable gold shutdown for them to get as well. It used to be a 2-level lead, call it 1.5 for Sap over Zhainy, that is now turned over in favor of the Tartarus Titans mid laner after he got that kill onto Zhainy and collected some of that XP, some of that shutdown gold. Actually, a level and a half, maybe 2, in favor of Zhainy. So quite the turnaround here, as they actually fight back pretty well. They're still down a couple thousand gold, but it definitely feels like they got their footing under them.
Oh man, Sap7 steps up way high. There is the damage coming out. There's the Iron Monster, not going to connect by virtue of that crushing wave. Zhainy gives chase. Zhainy does connect. Another kill onto this Hebo. Now WorstTurttle hunting around. Not sure exactly where they want to land. They shall land where they began. Nice double tectonic rift as well. Shuts down any more aggression. And another decent fight for the Tartarus Titans. They are clawing their way back in slowly but surely.
And some more we'll call it precarious positioning from SAP7 there. You can argue that Hebo was designed to play like that, where you're already the furthest man forward. Your job is I ult in, I kill a guy, and then my job is done. But he hasn't been doing that, Judas. I mean, that's not what we've seen SAP7 doing so far this game. It's been a lot of getting pinched very early on in these engagements and not seeing a whole lot of value out of this Hebo pick the same way that we did from the Chernobog. Don't forget game 1, he kind of played that initiator, that utility style where he goes in, they use cooldowns on him, but he gets some kind of damage off, gets some kind of utility from his death. That's not really the style of play that Hebo has, as Icy has to dash on out of here off the back of the horse. Spudio is definitely going to be favored in the 1v1 if left alone, which begs the question, Judas, how do the Tartarus Titans find a way in? And apparently it's around MastKiII.
Already a lot of damage done to MastKiII. Dharmic Pillars will seal the fate of this Maui, and SAP7 shall be the beneficiary of the kill. Now, dashing forward is Zhainy. Doesn't quite catch WorstTurttle. Manages to get on away. Now, Zhainy's here for this fight. That's a nice beads out from Zhainy. Crush over the wall does a decent amount of damage. Zhainy on the back of Suku now getting engaged on a nice double whoop. And then combine that with SAP7 going in. WorstTurttle so low. Zhainy does survive the aggression. Lestimics all in and all the way down. The rest of the Mambo now barreling forward onto AicyD. Zhainy dukes it out with Zhainy and shall come out on top, but no mana left. Can you survive? The aggression from Julio does avoid the slow from the sickle. MastKiII to provide some peel and protection. Zhainy somehow still wanders out alive. AicyD looping around for the fight. Zhainy with a little amount of damage, a little amount to work with. AicyD dashing in. Dark Pillars again on this fight. Julio takes him down. I'm a Monster shall connect with Sap, but it won't quite do enough damage. Julio is not taking a ton of damage in this fight at all and shall get out alive. A scrappy engagement again, but Hex Mambo still come out on top overall.
Hex Mambo may come out on top, but every time that we see these engagements, it gives me some hope for the Tartarus Titans, because WorstTurttle continues to look very good on this Thor, playing that utility style of pick that Thor can be at times. Obviously, if you get far ahead on this pick, you have the damage sufficient to one-shot a guy by yourself, but WorstTurttle is not fed here, and he's just basically playing setup man for his mid laner, for his back line, for whatever is around him at any given point. And Zhainy is definitely the guy to be setting up for right now. He looks red hot on this Scylla, hitting these freehand I'm a Monsters, getting that shutdown on Zhainy earlier, managing to somehow make it out alive, being chased by 3 people on the Hex Mambo. There's a shining light of hope for the Tartarus Titans, and it's definitely not the 4 levels down support. They're going to have to find some way to keep MastKiII safe at the beginning of these fights, because everything else doesn't look too bad.
Well, the Gold Fury should be going the way. Oh my goodness, Zhainy. That is the kill already. Now, Hex Mambo get the Gold Fury, but Spudio in some danger. Landfall shall lock in Cozy. Cozy now with the Dharmic Pillars. Can't get past. There is another Tectonic Rift in the way. Dash through the wall, Cozy. You can do that. We'll dash out to safety instead. Zhainy now with the I'm a Monster shall connect. Zhainy is unstoppable for the Hex Mambo. Spudio now the target. Gets locked in by the walls. There's the Aegis. There's a 4-man grouping all around them, though, and AicyD gets the all-important pick. A huge fight for the Tartarus Titans. Now Julio is in. Julio is trying to swing, get the tethers onto 3. Triple stun shall set the end of this aggression. But a great fight again for the Tartarus Titans. Have clawed their way in all at the back of Zhainy.
And, well, hang on. Zhainy might not be done here.
Blink
in here onto AicyD. Gets that good damage. Aegis forced out from the Hachi. Has to dash away. Julio is not done, though.
Julio is in chasing one. Zhainy shall chase the other, and they shall both, in synchronicity, get their 2 kills. I think that actually might have been a Shield of Thorns coming through from Julio there, picking up that kill. But wherever Zhainy is seems to be where the Tartarus Titans have success. And Zhainy again looping around onto Zhainy. The damage comes through. Great damage. We're still already wants to go up into the air, tries to land down, but Zhainy can leap over the wall. There's the Sikkim, though. There is the basic. Zhainy 8-1 on this Scylla, putting the entirety of the Tartarus Titans on their back.
And well, hang on. We might not get a chance to chat just yet. lestimics contending this Pyromancer by himself, gets damage off onto SAP7, forces the reset of the objective, and now the rest of the Tartarus Titans are on the scene, so Hex Mambo shouldn't be able to grab this one. But you can't draw it up any better than that, Judas. I mean, I was just saying that the things that look good for the Tartarus Titans are WorstTurtle's setup, the damage from Zhainy always being on point, and MastKiII has to find some way to be safer and not get picked off at the beginning of these engagements. And that fight starts with WorstTurtle's setup, Zhainy's follow-up, just blowing up Sap 7. By the way, both Beads and Aegis and ult available for Sap. Doesn't use any of it, just dies. And then MastKiII gets a great landfall. They pull everybody back in. They shut down Spudio. Now they get another kill and the beacon away from Cozy. This is as good of a situation as you can draw up for the Tartarus Titans.
Yeah, they've really been negating this gold differential. Sap gets hook, gets instead the purification bees, goes with the crushing wave. Not quite enough damage. Sap so low. WorstTurttle shall land back down. MastKiII gets an important kill. Look at the level gain that MastKiII has had in the past few minutes. Went from level 9 to level 13 in the space of just a few moments. And Tartarus Titans still down on gold, but they're really looking in the ascendancy.
Yeah, they are heating up here, and lestimics has to get out of dodge. Root immune, fortunately, but not stun immune at the end of that burn, so he's got Zhainy on the way in. Probably gonna have to burn the ult here. Hope that he knows that Johnny's around.
No.
Looks like no. Beads will save him, but only for a moment, Judas, as he does take a spill to the Hex Mambo jungler. And that seems to be where they've had most of their success so far this game. It's been a lot of Zhainy, it's been a lot of Julio. I said Johnny's probably gonna be the main character of this game. And he's looked like it, man. It's 19 minutes in. The guy's level 19, already has 4 completed items alongside that party punch, which gives him a little bit of additional damage. Anybody he interacts with in the jungle right now is under very serious and very real threat to their life. He has got an insane amount of burst damage that has to be respected at all stages of the game. But you could argue that for Zhainy as well. I mean, Scylla wants to get to the late game and has gotten there incredibly comfortably here. 8-1-4 for the Scylla, about to finish off a 4th item of his own. I mean, things are getting to the point where, despite being a couple thousand gold down, the map momentum is shifting in favor of the Tartarus Titans. They just have to keep the grasp on the game and not let it slip away. You can't give away too many of these pyromancers. You have to step up for this next Gold Fury. Can't allow them to sneak away a fire giant with the ult from Zhainy and the unexpectedly high burst damage they'll have on that. You have to step up and contend with these, because 4,000 is a lead you can fight into, but if you lose one fight, give away an objective, then it gets scary.
Well, if Johnny's the main character, then Zhainy is the antagonist. MastKiII pulled in for some damage. WorstTurttle up into the sky. There's the armor blaster on 2. Crushes them down, devouring the enemy team. There will be the wasted shot, though doesn't quite connect onto Cozy because they're already dead. This fight that you mentioned they had to take. They have taken it well. Now, Zhainy is still looping around this Primal Fury in danger. Zhainy, though, also in danger. No eyes on Zhainy. No recognition that they're behind them. There is the dash away after the feather step. AicyD, nowhere to go. Gets caught on the horse with that feather step. Now, Zhainy still has to retreat. WorstTurttle has to retreat. Zhainy defending, but there is a nice knock-up. Nice Aegis used, but a double kill still for Zhainy. You just can't stop this man on this type of pick.
I never want to see Zhainy play anything other than Awilix for the rest of his life, and I never want to see Zhainy play anything other than Scylla for the rest of his life. This is literally like, it's the battle of the main characters. You said that he's the antagonist, and it's definitely feeling like it. And this is the stage of the game where the antagonist, you know, you think that you've finally gotten rid of him, and then he goes off and he goes back to his doom lair or whatever it is that he does and powers up and then comes back for the final engagement around the fire giant, or at least that's how, I don't know, my Smite fanfiction might be going. But the Hex Mambo have a very commanding position and have finally shut down some of the momentum that the Tartarus Titans were collecting. Don't forget that, again, it was 4 levels down for the support in particular. It was 2 levels down for the mid lane, and now they've finally fought their way back to parity, and they were on the up and up. Like, all trends were favoring the Tartarus Titans, despite what the graphs might tell you. And finally, Hex Mambo have at least put a pin in it and slowed things down. Smite, make no mistake about it, Judas, is a momentum-based game. And the fact that you've cut a lot of that momentum for the Titans means that Hex Mambo's job going forward is a lot easier. And you can tell that the confidence in particular has been boosted up quite a bit because they're already going for this Fire Giant.
Giant started up. The engagement starts up on the WorstTurttle. Gets pulled in by the Awilix. Has to fly on away from Julio. Fire Giant does get dropped. So the Hex Mambo will have to begin that damage all over again. Zhainy is still around, but Julio doesn't want to let them too close. Lestimics goes in, plays Bulldozer to create some space for Zhainy to loop around this right-hand side. Fire Giant at half HP. Zhainy spots out their target. Gets, oh my god!
Goodbye.
Absolutely deleted by Zhainy, who does fire at the Armor Monster but can't connect with any more damage. All of a sudden, the star player for the Hex Mambo has gone down. The main character has been defeated, and the support cast don't know what to do just yet. Dzoni gets, Julio gets locked into place, and WorstTurttle now on a killing spree. The Tartarus Titans in position to take this Fire Giant. It is not yet enhanced. They have started up the damage, but the health bars are not particularly high. Lestimics gets whooped by Spudio. MastKiII jumping back in onto this Freya. Big knock-up from SAP7, though, means that Spudio gets the first kill onto the support for the Tartarus Titans, and SAP7 shall take down more damage, but Zhainy again, looping around this assassin style, takes the kill. WorstTurttle dives in to a death from SAP7. It's just Lestimics and Zhainy, but the crush comes through. There is the Aegis, and Zhainy used the Sikkim elsewhere. This brawl will continue. Johnny's back alive. Fine again with the Armor Monster. SAP7 solo gets the crushing wave again. Zhainy finds the Sikkim, another kill, and he had another killing spree for this Scylla. Cozy can't do any more than throw out the Dharmic pillars. Both sides get bloody noses.
I don't know, Matt. Somebody check him PC, because this is not normally the way that Zhainy is playing right now. We haven't seen this since, I don't know, maybe Paul, maybe MLC Stealth. That's the caliber of play that we're seeing from Zhainy here. And you can type an essay to me, Judas, about how the setup has been fantastic. MastKiII has really found his own way into this game and heated back up. WorstTurttle on the support role, the initiation has been fantastic. But Zhainy is just on the mark with just about everything he's thrown out so far this game. We're talking perfectly timing Spudio coming out of Valkyrie's discretion and immediately landing into a Sikkim and dying instantly. We're talking Johnny getting blown up 100-0 to start off that engagement. He is 13-2 on a pick that you don't even think of Scylla anymore. When you think of what I should be playing in the mid lane, it's all assassins, it's all these very hyper aggro, aggressive, early style of characters. Zhainy picks up a character that no one expected him to play and has looked fantastic on it so far. I would argue, Judas, and hear me out on this.
Argue it with me.
Johnny is no longer the main character.
Oh.
This is book 2 of the series, and we found out that Zhainy was the main character all along.
Wow. Harsh words coming out from Kaizo on to Johnny, but let's see what Zhainy can do about it. Johnny throws out a Moonlit Charge onto Zhainy, who is a little, not particularly healthy. As a Scylla, you do find you can fall quite quickly. The Lestimics taking tons of shots from Spudio. MastKiII has to leap away, but Johnny shuts that one down. There is a landfall of everybody, and more CC coming through, but Zhainy can't connect with the damage. Looping around the other side, don't even need Zhainy so far. Already winning this fight so far are the Titans. Now Cozy on the retreat. We do see Julio looped on the right-hand side. Johnny gets chased away by WorstTurttle. The Fire Giant is exposed. Julio now pulled into danger, leaps over straight into AicyD. WorstTurttle will lock him down. AicyD will shut them down. The Titans clash in the mid lane, but the Tartarus Titans go for this Fire Giant on the right-hand side.
This is bad for the Hex Mambo, Judas, because Tartarus Titans have discovered the power of friendship, and they've gone through their training arc, and now they're back in full force, and everybody's playing their part in their little montage moment. We see,
I love it.
The huge pull-in from Maui, and we get the flashbacks to where, oh, he was abused so early on in this game, he was 4 levels down, and then the slow motion rip of the entirety of the Hex Mambo up into the air. It's like I'm watching a movie right now. And the Tartarus Titans have finally found their way back into this game. They grabbed that Fire Giant around all 5 members, uncontested off the back of that fantastic fight where MastKiII, you could argue, probably should have died getting pulled back into 4 people, lives just long enough by some miracle to set up for that engagement to kick off. And now, after the entire game being behind, we're talking, it's 27 minutes in, probably 26 of those, the Hex Mambo were in the lead. Finally, Judas, the Tartarus Titans get to play on the front foot, and they're the ones calling the shots. They'll get this Primal Fury completely uncontested now, and are likely to make their way instead over toward the tier 2 towers and left. We're talking, you could get a Phoenix pretty reliably with this Fire Giant, especially now that, as production points out, Zhainy has this Polynomicon online that gives him not only just an insane, just criminal amount of burst damage if he hits anybody with a root, as he's been doing so far this game, but also gives you some additional damage on these sieges. It makes you poke down the towers a little bit more effectively. You don't have to go in for more than a second or two with your support to just shunt a polyauto onto the tower, start getting a little bit of that damage online. Hex Mambo have to get some answers because, again, Smite, momentum-based game, and Tartarus Titans have all the momentum in the world here.
Now, the Tartarus Titans asking all the questions, and this next question is, can you defend this tier 2 tower? Now, there's not a huge commitment coming out from the Tartarus Titans. They've already swept up the first tier 2 that they were looking for. But the second tier 2 in mid lane getting very, very low. lestimics tanking it up. WorstTurttle again playing supporter, just zoning away with even more CC and objects being thrown into the face of the Mambo. And again, there's not a lot that the Mambo can do about it. The Titans are playing this safely and smartly. They've taken this Fire Giant. Now they are stripping their way through the map. It is still only 22 kills to 21. The Mambo have had a good time of it so far. But right now, the Titans really making them suffer.
And I've been preaching the Titans story for the last couple of minutes, but let's talk about the Hex Mambo here, because they have to contend with the siege of the Tartarus Titans and might go for it here. They have a lot of gold in hand that they could go spend with all of the towers and the minor objective they picked up. Looks like they probably smartly decide to back up. And Hex Mambo do not want to let them spend all of that gold. They're going to chase them down. WorstTurttle channeling the back does get it off. That was my main concern. But now that the Titans are going to get the chance to spend all this gold, we're talking 5,000 gold in their favor. And it's not at the point, Judas, where that's hugely impactful anymore. Almost all of these builds being finished up for both teams. We're talking starter items on all 10 players in the lobby already. Just looking to trade out those recipes, which make it look like your build's full, but your build's not really full if you've still got a recipe in that last slot. You'd much rather have, I talked about this with JMac for a bit, usually if you get a tier 2 of an item, that's typically when teams look to start selling off those recipes and start picking them up. Things like Bountiful Bow can feel very good for one part of a engagement and team fight, but once you get to the second round of abilities being cast, if you get, in particular, these hunters want something else instead of golden gooseberries. And sap,
what?
No one knows sap is there. Oh no,
what is going on? Right, they spotted outside. Looks like everyone didn't notice what was going on there. Like ships passing in the night. Sap 7 on the retreat. Nice double knock up to the sky is WorstTurttle. That will be
and
the damage coming out. Oh, nice. Just a lot of ultimates expended there for the Tartarus Titans. I thought they were looping around for a Phoenix push there, actually. But no, we're just targeting out the Hebo. But that will be beads and Aegis and ultimate off of the Hebo. So just Tartarus Titans will return to base, lick their wounds, and regain ward coverage of this Fire Giant pit. What do you think of that play there? Was that a smart play, or was that sort of a desperation play? It didn't really feel like that, but it maybe was a little bit of an overcommitment.
Desperation's not the right word. It's more they didn't have a whole lot of time left on Fire Giant, probably an insufficient amount of time to step up to this Phoenix and really force their way into it. The only way that you were getting a bird for the Tartarus Titans was if you successfully landed a pick onto somebody. That's sort of why you saw everybody grouped up in the jungle like that. You're not comfortable marching your way down a lane and forcing a full-on team fight, but if you can catch one guy unawares and then get some kind of advantage going into the siege, then maybe you go for the bird. But it's a very low risk play. I mean, worst case scenario, you use a couple of ults, you don't get the kill, back up, reset, make your way over to the Fire Giant. Now we're seeing our first relatively even fighting, or even footing fight in the jungle over here. WorstTurttle gets banished, Spudio gets jumped in on actually, and MastKiII might be in some danger.
The hunting for this Maui. All 5 members of the Hex Mambo. WorstTurttle shall wall any more aggression off, but this next beacon has appeared. and shall be available for Hex Mambo to clean up. Tier 1 tower in mid lane, still standing, by the way, often been discussed as one of the more important objectives, and Hex Mambo still haven't taken that down. Like you said, all even footing, and look at the ward coverage on that right-hand side. It's almost filling in the blanks there.
It is multicolored, multifaceted over there. I mean, it's a lot of red, it's a lot of blue, and it's very aggressive for the Tartarus Titans. They very clearly want to get a pick around this choke point where you see Cozy standing right now, and the Hex Mambo are just fighting their way forward with sentry wards, trying to cover their trails, make sure that the Tartarus Titans don't have the information of where they're standing at. Julio takes half of his health bar for just taking one crowd control, and we'll have to ult out there. That could be the go button here for the Tartarus Titans. I think that if you see Julio reset, you probably look to pull this one. And even if you see him stick around at half HP and no ult available, that could still be a pretty good option for you if you're the Titans to go ahead and pull this one. Don't forget, I'm a Monster, best secure, most reliable secure on the map, and Zhainy's the guy to feed that opportunity to.
Well, Fire Giant, half HP. Julio has back, but has teleported back into the fight. MastKiII now taking a little bit of damage from this Fire Giant. WorstTurttle steps up onto Julio again. A ton of damage onto this Osiris. The Fire Giant is very, very low. There's the landfall, not quite pulling anyone in. Lestimics up into the Somersault Cloud, and WorstTurttle has to dunk down. Fire Giant still half HP, but there is the route that they were looking for. Sikkim does get Aegis out, and that will be Sap7 still alive. MastKiII in some danger, gets hit with the Ohm. Zhainy still lurking, still prowling on the outside for a pick. There's WorstTurttle, gets caught, but that's the gravity surge from Zhainy expended. A lot of low health bars for the moment, but Sap slams down the aggression coming out from WorstTurttle. Tartarus Titans aren't stepping up high enough to punish all these health bars. The Mambo not healthy enough to take this Fire Giant. It is a wash with just the one kill onto WorstTurttle.
Wow, I don't know if that's an 18 or if that's a 12 for Sap, but it should have just said enough, because it was sufficient to just erase WorstTurttle for hammering in on him. Not a drop of defense in a build for this Thor, so definitely just going to be falling in response to that. But after that fight, Judas, take a look at the relic situation for the Hex Mambo. They're stepping up here, and they want to get this power play while WorstTurtle's down, but no relics available for anybody but Spudio. This is dire.
Oh. Lestimics is so low, and Lestimics does go down. Spudio changes their aggression on to this Fire Giant. Julio defending away any sort of aggression coming out, and that will have to be that for the Tartarus Titans. They do give up the enhanced Fire Giant to the Hex Mambo, who are now going to be looking to sweep down these last couple of towers. Man, this game is close.
This game is razor thin right now, and that was probably the only chance that the Hex Mambo had to take that fight before they got punished for using all those relics. If you let WorstTurttle respawn, then not having beads or Aegis available for Sap, Blink missing, beads also missing for... Well, I don't get that chance to talk right now. At least it doesn't seem like it, because Hex Mambo are running at whatever's in front of them despite not having any relics, which is what I'm trying to talk about, Judas, is the fact that they don't have any relics, and that's supposed to make them scared, but they don't seem scared at all. They don't seem deterred whatsoever from taking these fights, despite the fact that the resources that you would traditionally want to keep you safe unavailable for the Hex Mambo. And that's the confidence that they've played with all sets so far, even in the face of seemingly overwhelming adversity at certain times in this game, when Zhainy was really having the momentum under him, when Mast was catching back up and finally starting to land some of these landfalls. I mean, take a look at this graph, man. Even when things were at their worst, both of these teams back against the wall have fought their way back to parity and now back in the favor of the Hex Mambo with Fire Giant on all 5 members. And now let's talk about siege defense for the Tartarus Titans, because Hex Mambo had their one defense and did a pretty good job with it. Titans have to mirror that or better here. And they do have pretty reasonable clear with something like a Scylla. That's one of the things that mages are so good at in the late game, is making sure that you can get those waves pushed up reliably without having to worry about backdoor protections being removed, making sure that you can still get some frontliner damage off if somebody steps too far forward. Because actually WorstTurttle might be too far forward and actually just deleted.
Oh, goodness. Now, that is going to spell danger for the Tartarus Titans. And I don't mean fight danger. I mean end of game danger. Now, this right side Phoenix is being threatened. There comes the landfall. Gets the beads from Sap7. MastKiII pulled back into danger. Can't get up on the solar swing. It's just being shut down from the solar swing and does not get up into the sky. Lestimics and AicyD have to retreat. Zhainy not being allowed to get involved in this fight so far. The front line has not been there for them. Zhainy dodges out that water spout coming through from Sap7, who is lurking on the right-hand side, ready to punish any over-aggression. Sap7 gets the Aegis and shall survive the initial damage from Lestimics and from Zhainy. Up into the somersault cloud goes the Wukong. 2 Phoenixes lie fallen in ruins. Zhainy still trying to find that all-important pick, but Hex Mambo still trying to find that all-important Titan. Sikkim Crush off the mark. Lestimics goes in. Lestimics goes up. Lestimics might fall down as well. There's all the aggression. There is the kill that they needed. Zhainy, low health, has to be forced into the Titan, into the fountain, because AicyD's already fallen. WorstTurtle's back alive. What can they do in conjunction with Zhainy? There's the I'm a Monster. Comes through, hits 1. Comes through, hits 2, but doesn't kill. And that will be a lot of damage onto this Titan. Still, the Titan falls lower and lower. Zhainy gets a kill, and the Titan will fall down to the rest of Hex Mambo. Zhainy still stands tall, but everything else lies in ruin. Hex Mambo fight back through a huge deficit and come away the winners.
What a game, Judas. I that was a treat to watch. You don't often see in today's Smite those back and forth kind of games. I mean, we're talking maybe a 1,000, 2,000 gold swing here and there, but 10,000 gold from 5,000 deficit to 5,000 in the lead there is a crazy one to go back from. And then to actually claw back from that 5,000 gold lead after surrendering it, demonstrating the veteranship of this Hex Mambo team. And, you know, it's got to be said. I cooked this one up at some point during that set, and I didn't get the chance to mention it, but it seems to me, Judas, that Sap he must have attended the iRaffer School of Middle Lane, because his playstyle seems to me to be entirely, I'm going to go in, they'll use everything on me, and then I'll play Zeus. I'll die, but I'll get all my damage off, and then we'll just win the fight off of it. He did that both games in a style of play that I haven't seen out of a mid laner in a very long time, but I mean, it definitely worked for the Hex Mambo. Zhainy looked fantastic in that set. Julio came to life a little bit there at the end too. It was it's very unfortunate for Zhainy to have that kind of career game and then still end up losing, but sometimes that's just how the Smite goes.
Yeah, that is how it goes, and that is how it went. The Mambo take this set 2-0, and that is it for the EU SCC for this morning. So thank you all for joining us. I've been Judas Priestley, joined of course by Kaizo. Still on the backside, we've had Phoenix and Raptor coming around, helping us out here. But that will be that for this morning's broadcast. Stick around, because we will have SPL coming up very, very soon. And after that, of course, some NASCC. But that is it from us today. We're signing off.
Are down. Biotechnology has been successfully implemented. The new era has begun.
shit.